The fourth module provides a practical resource to accompany Module 3 on the right to be heard during the procedures related to alternatives to detention. Its objective is to advise policy officers, interpreters, social workers, judges, lawyers, and volunteers on how to best communicate with children when they interact with them, and to highlight what ethical issues might be at stake. The module includes a definition of the relevant principle on child-friendly communication, practical tips and suggestions on how to communicate with a child, examples on good and bad practices based on the experience of practitioners. When authorities are called upon to decide on application of detention or alternatives to detention, they should first and foremost consider that detention is always against the best interest of the child, and then that the choice of measures to be applied in lieu of detention should be similarly informed by the principle of the best interest. During the assessment, a number of elements should be taken into account: the age and the identity of the child, the health conditions, physical or psychological vulnerabilities or illness that would make it impossible to detain the person, the history of the child, the reasons for fleeing the country, and the risk in case of return, in order to assess the risk of violation of the principle of non-refoulement. And finally, indicators that the child is or could be a victim of trafficking, and therefore it needs special help. The interview must be conducted by professional, qualified, and specialized officers who have an appropriate knowledge of psychological, emotional, and physical behaviors of children. Border guards and police officers are always to be accompanied by qualified officers. When communicating with migrant children, 4 elements are to be taken into consideration. These are the basis of the participation model developed by Ireland's national strategy on children participation in decision-making. The elements are the space. Children must be given safe and inclusive opportunities to express their views in a safe space. The voice. The child has to be informed about the right to express their voice, their views, and their will. The audience. The person who is responsible for communication should be open to listen without bias and prejudgments. And finally, the influence. That means that the communication should take place in a time frame that actually allows the child to influence the decision process for the adoption of alternatives to detention. During interviews and communication, children should have the opportunity to speak in a language that they understand and they can speak easily. All the information should be translated, and all interviews must take place in the presence of an interpreter or a cultural mediator. During any communication with children, all actors must ensure that the child receives gender-appropriate information. Most of all, the interviewer shall aim at developing a relationship with the child that builds on trust and respect. The more the child feels comfortable, the more they will open up. Trust is always the key.